Hello and welcome. It's October just, and it feels like it. We're here at Mondello Park in Ireland for the 8th and final round of the 2011 Eastern Airways British F1 Sidecar Championship. The weather here has been appalling for the last 2 days. It's rained constantly. Meanwhile, over on the UK mainland, by contrast, they're basking in the high 20s. Let me show you something. This, believe it or not, is the paddock. The rain was so bad last night that some of the crews had to move to higher ground. It seems impossible that just a week ago we were at Silverstone for round 7. And it was the big 3.7 mile Grand Prix circuit that hosted the first race. Already a hand in the air from the back. There was a problem with Tim Reeves and Greg Clues getting off the line. A very sluggish start for them, which left the others at the front of the pack, namely Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence, chased by Ben Bygrave and Ben Holland, to make hay. Gary Smith went out of it early. He's been going well of late. Barry James once again put it on his roof. No injury to the rider, but that did bring out the safety car. That gave everybody the opportunity to close up, of course. Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence had put in blisteringly quick times in qualifying. From the back of the grid, Scott Lorry had a very fraught qualifying, to say the least, having been disqualified for cutting the chicane, had to fight back through the traffic. At the front, though, Roger Lovelock's bike was so quick, he was giving Tim Reeves a lot of trouble, making the championship leader work for his living. Ahead of Ben Holland, Scott Lorry and James Neve were really carving through from that sluggish start, and they got past Lovelock and Lawrence, only though to hit a problem. It was not to be their day. As it would turn out, Silverstone was to be a bad day for them. Tim Reeves and Greg Clues, though, brought it home. What a season they are having. They had to do it all again in race 2, but they were joined on the front row by Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence, who had shown them in the first race that they were quick. And the veterans, and I'm going to call them veterans, keep calling them veterans because that's what they are by their own admission, really made Tim Reeves work for it. Ben Bygrave, Callum Lawson were locked into third place, Ben Holland and Lee Watson there as well. John Clark, Stuart Graham going through, and again recovering from a bad start, Scott Lorry. But the wheel popped up for Tim Reeves, allowing Roger Lovelock on the 49 Green Meanie to charge through and lead the pack. Reeves, though, doesn't give an inch, fought back as hard as he could, got his nose in front, but it was to be to no avail because the reigning champion was to hit trouble just as Scott Lorry did for a second time. Silverstone, best forgotten then for Scott Lorry, and there it was. Tim Reeves went out the passenger. Greg Clues pointed to what turned out to be a brake fluid hydraulic leak. The coast was clear then for the boys, the young boys, Ben Bygrave and Ben Holland, to make their presence felt. On for a podium spot. There was no stopping Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence. A big spin, though, by Ben Bygrave resulted in the outfit going on its roof. Callum Lawson was to sustain an injured ankle. Ben Bygrave was okay, and it was a brilliant finish for Ben Holland. But top step of the podium, customary handstand for Rick Lawrence. Roger Lovelock, what a star. Championship done and dusted for Tim Reeves and Greg Clues. With 1 round to go, they've got it home and dry. Lovelock and Lawrence, what a ride they had, moving on to 2:12. Scott Lorry relegated to 3rd. The Birchells then, 4th place for them. They were away on world duty. Mark Edwards, Shelley Smith is on the Kawasaki there with 16 points. Ian Guy, Carol McBride on 32 points. Carol will be joining me in the commentary box for the Mondello round. Gary Smith has come really good of late. He's on 31. It's quite a long lap here at the Mondello Park International Circuit. A little under 2.5 miles. And as I say, the weather is not getting any better. So much so that practice times were around an average speed of 50 miles an hour. That's unbelievably slow. So let's just have a look and see what these riders have to contend with. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that we're at the front here. We're blessed with not having spray thrown back at us. Anybody behind us will be getting filled in well and truly. I'm going to try and follow this lap with my lap chart, and it's not going to be easy, I can tell you, because all of the riders, without exception, have said to me how difficult this Mondello circuit is to remember. We're on what amounts to the back straight now, up to 5th gear here on a normal day, shall I say. Hopefully we're going to see some dry conditions. A double apex right-hander holding third round here. If it doesn't spin up, the front's going to step out. That's exactly what you saw there. Nailing it again now, down the back here towards a long left loop. The tricky thing for the passenger here is a compromise between keeping the chair down and getting grip to the back wheel. So it is exactly that, it's a compromise. You won't see many of the passengers hanging out hard left when the conditions are as wet as this. There's a variety of tarmac surface as well. This is another difficult right-hander, doubling up again, and then onto an uphill climb with a slight left kink as we come over the brow of the hill. Going left now towards what is a double apex down to 2nd gear. Here's the second part of it. It's almost squared off. Away they go again, back up the hill, into 3rd gear and holding 3rd for the next right. Back 1 in actual fact. Back 1 there, round we go. So he might have just sneaked into 4th. Out of that and away we go again. Left-hander, 50-yard board they've displayed on the grass. The variety of tarmac surface as well, making it very difficult for these guys to get the tyres to grip. You'll hear the engine spinning and spinning as it gets rear wheel slippage. Now over the brow of the hill, there's a big surprise coming up. The Dunlop right turn, it's 2nd gear tight, and then nailing it up the straight. 2.5 miles of absolute torture. That's Mondello Park in the wet. Well, the worst of the weather has passed through. There's still a lot of water around this Mondello circuit. A lot of these riders are seeing the track for the first time, but they need a good grid position for our 2 races. Race 1, of course, will set the grid for race 2, but they're off qualifying. They need a good start in race 1. Well, having said we thought the weather might improve, it actually got steadily worse to the point where in this race 1 sprint race, which would set the grid for our 2 main races, there was standing water. All credit to number 26, Gordon Shand, who in 4 days rebuilt that bike completely after that massive Silverstone crash. Such is the commitment and the dedication of the riders from north of the border. In fact, the whole entry, that they turn up when they can. And he gave a good account of himself, as indeed did Carl Parkinson and Darren Tritton on the number 2 outfit. The crowd, though, were thrilled. Despite the appalling conditions, Roger Lovelock and Ben Holland were having a good old push, but Tim Reeves again was supreme. Ben and Tom Burchell had crashed out at the first turn, trying to make a bid for the lead, and everybody paddling their way round, again at an average slow lap speed, it has to be said, but in those conditions, wouldn't you be slow? I certainly would. The experience, though, of Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence paid dividends. They were pushing hard all the way, but Reeves, though, was away. He'd got clear visibility, and he would start from pole position for the main race on Sunday. Chasing them home, Ben Holland and Lee Watson put in a good account of themselves as well, but it was to be Reeves then topping the podium and starting from pole position for Sunday's race. Roger Lovelock, Rick Lawrence here again. I mean, awful conditions. It's the same for everybody, but that sets you up beautifully for a good start tomorrow, yeah?
Yeah, unfortunately not front row, but hey-ho. Second row's as good, or near as. Pretty tricky out there. It's very slippery. Tyres sort of going off towards the end of that session. But we held it, they're in 3rd place. So, yeah, 3rd on the grid's good enough for what we want.
Rick, off the back of a win at Silverstone, I mean, you guys are regular front runners now, and you optimistic for tomorrow? Tim Reeves is quick, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, Tim's always been quick, and you can't take that away from the guy. You don't get to where he's got in in our world without being good and quick. But yeah, we're quite happy out there. I mean, we were happy out there yesterday when we were on free practice in the dry. We were quite happy. So we're a bit unhappy with our qualifier this morning, as in the set one they did earlier on, which put us back on the grid a bit. But now with that one, we're happy. So yeah, tomorrow is another day, and if it's dry, then yeah, great. If it's wet, we'll take it with everybody else, I think.
Ben Holland, Lee Watson, 2 big races tomorrow, but that was a short, sharp dash that made sure you're on the front row. You must be thrilled.
Short, sharp dash. It seemed to take forever for me, but yeah, it was good. It was pretty challenging. It was pretty greasy out there today. We tried to keep with Tim at the start of it, but yeah, there was a lot of spray about, and it was just very hard to see. And of course, Tim rode very fast, and yeah, we done enough to secure second.
Lee, a good grid position round here is essential, isn't it? If you're not in the front with all this spray and all the muck, you haven't got a hope in hell.
Yeah, definitely. If it's going to be like this tomorrow, then front row start's going to be a massive bonus. Also very narrow around here, so even if it's dry, it's probably going to be good to be on the front row. It's a little bit sharp downhill, which we realised during the start of that race, but no, we're very happy with second.
Tim Reeves, Greg Clues. Terrible weather, but you've been fastest all through free practice, fastest in qualifying, pole position again for 2 races tomorrow. Doesn't get much better than that, does it?
No, it'd be good if this weather would clear up, wouldn't it? I'm racing at home for the first time in, forever, and it's pouring with rain. What can you say? We had a good time though, and it was bike's working good, and we had a little misfire in qualifying, but luckily we found it. Don't know what it was. We changed everything we could electrical, and it cured the problem. So I'm over the moon. Yeah, we got a good start, and Greg done a great job. And what can you say? Over the moon.
Greg, the weather just awful, so wet. Is it difficult, more difficult when it's raining?
It's not more difficult compared to dry, but it's really it's really hard for try move really, with not big movement. But I really like the rain, and I enjoy this race here.
Well, we know the top 3. Let's have a look and see if there are any other big surprises there. Well, Scott Laurie on row 4. I told you Gordon Shan was going well. He's on there with Parky Look on row 5. So, very thrilled. You'll look at Napton there riding with Ben Bygrave on row 4. Paul Napton standing in for the injured Callum Lawson. Further down the order, Ian Drown with Phil Sloan on board. So, Ian Drown, none the worse for his great big Cadwell crash, back in business. The Birchells, well, what a sorry state of affairs for them, on row 9 after that first corner crash. I really am tempted, they're very special. I'd love to have a go one day. Maybe I will. We're going to take a short break now. 2 fantastic races coming up. Join us for race 1 after the break. Welcome to the grid for race 1 in what has to be said still appalling conditions. It hasn't improved overnight, and it also has to be said that Ben and Tom Birchall are right on the back of the grid due to their poor performance, their first lap crash in the sprint race, which denotes and defines the grid. So here we are on the 3rd row. Andy Peach and Charlie Richardson, they went well, but the conditions were bad, and it's not going to be any easier today. Phil Bell and Phil Hyde, we've seen Phil Bell in the wet at Knockhill. He seems to be something of a wet weather specialist. It remains to be seen whether he can go one better and move up onto the 2nd row. Remember, the race result defines where the riders, the crews start for the following race. And of course, we've got race 2 coming up later in the afternoon. Hopefully the weather will improve. Moving now through to the 2nd row, John Clark and Stuart Graham, local boys, well, from over the border in Ulster, but nonetheless they've got a good following here, and as the only Irish crew represented in the race, they would dearly love to make it a podium here at Mondello. Roger Lovelock, Rick Lawrence, they're not getting used to getting on the 2nd row. They like to be up the front. They certainly were at Silverstone, fresh from a victory at Silverstone in extremely different conditions, it has to be said. And Rick Lawrence always there, did his customary headstand for us after the Silverstone race. Going through to the sharp end now, we're going to go right up to the front row. Ben Holland and Lee Watson. It was them that Ben Birchall collided with on the first turn in the sprint race, but they kept going. They did really well, took the runner-up spot, never really looked back. But it was the reigning champion, or the current champion, the new champion, Tim Reeves and Greg Clues, who took the win here in the qualifying. They've been topping the leaderboard all through the weekend, fastest in practice, fastest in qualifying, pole position yet again. Tim Reeves and Greg Clues. It's about a 20-minute race, roughly 8 laps. It's going to be tricky, but great to watch. Have fun. Well, it might be great to watch standing trackside, but it's not going to be anything like pleasant if you're not in the top 2, I can tell you, because there's still standing water all the way through. Phil Bell, Phil Hyde, Andy Peach, Charlie Richardson there, the number 4 LNW outfit. Tim Reeves Ben Holland across the front row. You can see the uphill struggle they have to reach this first right-hander, and it's Roger Lovelock, number 49, Rick Lawrence, away they go. Everybody gingerly into this right-hander. Tim Reeves round the outside, cutting the nose off Ben Holland there. They've got to sort themselves out a little bit, and as I say, the spray further down the field is going to be really, really difficult. Ben Bygrave, number 74, with Paul Napton, formerly passenger with Janusz Remsi, and indeed Stuart Muldoon, holding down his third wheel and the back wheel of the bike, endeavouring to get it to grip. Tim Reeves in second, not able to do anything about that very, very quick Suzuki of Roger Lovelock. It's not about speed, though. It's about track craft and being very, very wily. Alongside me, multitasking today, because not only did she serve her duty as a grid girl, but she's joined me in the commentary box. Carol Mcbride, first time this season you've not passengered, and I bet you're not sorry.
No, I'm not actually. I'm pleased to be out of the weather conditions. Must be appalling out there. Visibility's got to be really bad.
Makes it difficult, Carol, for the passenger to move about when it's wet. I mean, you can't really see where you're supposed to be. You can overcompensate, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just got to be really smooth, try and keep the traction on the back wheel, but obviously keep enough on the left to stop it from sliding around. So yeah, quite difficult.
Well, if you're sitting at home thinking it looks slow, it's not slow. Television always does that to racing, but the conditions, I cannot overemphasize just how tricky it's going to be. And I have to say that at the start of the race, I described John Clark as the only Irishman out there. I did a disservice to Kyle Young. He's out there as well, another local man who rides in the Irish National Championship. And there is Kyle Young going through ahead of Gordon Shand. No, I bet you're not sorry, but what are the tactics going to be here, Carol? Just sit tight and let other people put their foot wrong?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, you're going to sort of stay close to the person in front and yeah, watch to make sure that anybody's going to lose traction and then take advantage of that. Like I say, out the front, you've got a clear visibility behind that. It's just anybody's guess. I think the spray's just really, really bad.
Well, you're one of two lady passengers out there, not out there, shall I say. Shelley Smith is riding with Greg Lambert, and Greg Lambert's regular passenger, Carl Schofield, is riding, would you believe, with our series promoter and organiser, Roger Body. Well, let's take a look then at the start. This is how Lovelock charged through the middle. He just got the grip all the way to the corner, got his nose in front. The other two were left standing. Further down the order, though, it was a very different kettle of fish.
Yeah, this is Scott Laurie and James News going through the grid, and you can see the spray coming off the bikes. It's just like picking a line has got to be awful in those conditions. That really gives you a good impression of what the actual driver's seeing there and the passengers as well.
Scott Laurie getting well and truly filled in, but oh, there's a tap on John Clark, and that slowed Scott Laurie just a little bit. Ben Bygrave and Paul Napton are now filling him in well and truly. Back to the front though, Roger Lovelock, Rick Lawrence, Tim Reeves, Greg Clues, they're getting away. Phil Bell and Scott Laurie side by side. You've got to be in front to see where you're going, but Phil Bell, we described him as a wet weather man. He certainly does seem to go very well when the conditions are difficult.
Yeah, he does. He really comes into his own in those conditions, doesn't he? You can see he's keeping ahead of Scott there nicely.
Well, Scott Laurie, of course, having let his second place in the championship evaporate to nothing, really, after Silverstone, now relegated to third. But Tim Reeves has got his work cut out at the front. Andy Peach, Charlie Richardson ahead of John Clark, on board now with Andy Peach. The number 4 outfit we've so often said, carrying the 4, fourth in the race, fourth in the championship. It's number 4 all the way through the season for Andy Peach, but his supremacy in the number 4 slot is being threatened all the time. Let's see if anyone takes a bid at him round here. If anybody, it's going to be John Clark. Now Scott Laurie has got the better of Phil Bell. Is he going to wind in? What's going to happen at the front here, Carol? Come on.
I think Tim's going to be looking for an advantage there, but I think they could be tripping each other up, possibly giving Ben a chance to pick up the third place.
What I have noticed with Tim Reeves, and this is no reflection on Greg Clues' passengering skills because he's one of the best in the business, the sidecar wheel is only just on the tarmac, which means he's getting enough, or as much as he can, on the back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as long as he's keeping that back wheel pinned down and he's getting the drive, that's all that's going to matter to Tim. So, and each passenger does it slightly differently, whatever works for the team and the driver.
Ben and Tom Birchall there in shot, sporting Montgomery livery, a sister company to their normal sponsors, Mitchells of Mansfield. They've got an Irish arm, and that's reflected in the livery on the Yamaha. Oh, the wheel, look at Charlie's foot dragging the tarmac there. Sideways for Scott Laurie. It really is on the edge here. The limits of adhesion now, number 16, Ben and Tom Birchall. Can they carve their way through? World class or not, it's got to be tough for them. They can't see where they're going.
Yeah, they can't, that's right. They've got all the spray to contend with behind, and they've got to be careful and, you know, picking their way through those people.
Well, John Clark hasn't given up, that's for sure. He's right there on the back of Scott Lorry. We're riding with Scott Lorry and James Neave now. You can see the variety of tarmac surfaces here on the Mondello International Circuit. And the bike ahead getting away, but throwing up that plume of spray through the standing water. And it's Charlie Richardson's leg waving in the air, as much to say, get thee behind me, Scott Lorry. But they're closing. Scott Lorry throws it in sideways. Not the best way to go around a corner.
No, you wouldn't have thought so, would you? Not in those conditions, but it seemed to have worked.
Here we go then. At the front, Roger Lovelock still ahead. Tim Reeves seemingly finding no answer, and you're quite right. Ben Holland and Lee Watson are as close now as they've ever been. Maybe they could sniff the second spot of the podium, but to do that, they've got to get past Reevesy. Ben Bygrave, number 74. Paul Napton. The rest of the outfits going through. There's Kyle Young. Now, Ben and Tom Birchall should, you would have thought, Carol, could cakewalk this.
Yeah, well, I mean, their experience, I mean, they should be picking their way through now. I would have thought we'd start to see them pick those next two off and start moving their way further up the grid.
Talk about experience. These guys at the front, they've got about as much experience collectively as any of the crews out there. John Clark and Stuart Graham on the number 90 bike from Banbridge, County Down, just north of the border here, dare I say. Tim Reeves, though, it doesn't look as though he's got an answer here on the Paget's Honda, sliding the back out there. Clive Paget very involved at Silverstone, very supportive of the sidecars. Scott Lorry's got the better of Andy Peach. Now he's got a relatively clear track ahead of him, and presumably Peach is going to get all the rubbish thrown at him now.
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? He's going to get his own back now.
Still at the sharp end, Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence paddling their way round in these difficult conditions, up the inside, side by side, and that was a nudge. That was a nudge.
Yeah.
Tim Reeves doesn't take any prisoners, absolutely barged his way through. Roger Lovelock pushed sideways, and once the tyres had let go, there was no way back, so they're now second.
Yeah, he did well to hold that, actually. Once they go past that lock, they pretty much go around 360, so he did well there.
Just about on the limits of it, I would have thought. Yeah, but they're still there in second place. He hasn't given up. They're not known for giving up. What it did do was drop them back into the clutches a bit more. But look, that is rain you're seeing, falling rain. In fact, it's torrential rain. And my thoughts go out to the poor cameraman as well, standing around the circuit in this lot. Just about everybody has got a thorough soaking here at Mondello Park, and it keeps on raining. Tim Reeves now in control, I have to say. I think you're looking, unless misfortune befalls any of them, I think you're looking at the podium, but it has to be said that it won't be fun for anybody out there, and drawing into the closing stages now of this race. Oh, now Andy Peach has gone. He's spun it completely. He's beached it. They're in the gravel. That's going nowhere, Charlie. You're wasting your time pushing, mate. It's on its belly. A shake of the head from Andy. He knows that his race is run. There's absolutely no traction because it's sitting on the belly pan. Paddling their way now. Look at the spray and the dripping water coming off that outfit. The leathers aren't exactly waterproof, are they?
No, they're not. They'll soak up the moisture quite easily, and they'll get heavier and heavier. That water there looks awful, doesn't it? Almost look like an aquaplane on that.
Well, you might think that the driver's going to stay dry in there, but of course he's got it all thrown up underneath.
Yeah, he gets all the spray up from the fairing, up for the handlebars a lot, and in these conditions quite a lot of them will suffer from visibility, where the visor will steam up, etc. So yeah, they've got that to contend with as well.
Ben and Tom Birchall, number 16. Gordon Shan, Colin Smythe, both Isle of Man TT regulars, and that's where the experience comes in. Shandy knows his way around a tricky circuit, and again you saw Colin there just doing enough to keep the sidecar wheel down and yet giving all the grip he needs to the rear. Similarly, bit of a shake of the head from Ben Holland as they came through there. Lee Watson just about in the optimum position. Scott Lorry, James Neave, then it's John Clark, then it's Phil Bell and Phil Hyde, then Ben Bygrave and Paul Napton. They still haven't given up though, Carol, have they? I mean, you've got to give credit to Roger Lovelock.
Yeah, absolutely. He's still trying there, isn't he? But I think Ben might be closing on him a little bit there.
Yeah, but it's not a done deal at the moment. It's certainly not a done deal. Scott Lorry still ahead, up to 4th place. That's the best he's going to do, I suspect. John Clark and Phil Bell have tussled and fought all the way through this race. But here's our race leader, number 77, Tim Reeves, paddling round. Roger Lovelock still just about 2.5 seconds adrift. And we're on board now. Can we see Reevesy up the road? We can't see a fat lot. Just about round the corner at the end of the straight there. At least there's not the spray. These guys at the front are getting a better ride of it.
Yeah, they are, definitely, yeah. You can see that the visibility is quite good, isn't it, on Roger's bike?
Would this be more tiring, or is it more tiring when it's hard and dry and fast?
It's more tiring when it's dry. You know, you're moving around more on the bike. But in the wet, you've just got to really be smooth and, say, like I said earlier, keep it pinned on the back wheel. Make sure you get that grip there.
Well, great stuff. They've given us a display. They had to fight for it for the first few laps, it has to be said. Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence will start race 2 from the front row. And Ben Holland and Lee Watson relegated to the second row. So it's all changed for those two, but the pole position man, and he's been dominant so far all weekend, Tim Reeves and Greg Clues, giving the Irish crowd, and in fact the couple of Irish local crews entered it here today, a riding display of a 1000cc 4-stroke sidecar outfit. They seem to have settled, these two.
Yeah, they do, don't they? I think they're just going home for a safe finish.
Well, they need the points, that's for sure. I think they're going to have to look towards 2012 for an improvement on their championship position. It was looking rosy this year, but they've slipped down the order just a little bit. Number 46, Kyle Young, who put in one of the performances actually at Snetterton. We saw him on the one and only other occasion that he rode in this championship. Ben Holland, Lee Watson. And now Tim Reeves has stretched that gap to something approaching 4 seconds. In fact, Roger Lovelock slipping back just a little bit now. Not exactly into the clutches of Ben Holland, but certainly further down the order. Carol, it's a shame really that we've had this sort of weather to wrap up what's been an absolutely fantastic season of sidecar racing.
Yeah, it is. But I think I was just thinking actually that some of these people, I mean, Tim's got the championship, but obviously second is still up for grabs and third is up for grabs. So these guys are going to want to come home now and get finishes. So maybe they're going to settle for second and third. That's good enough to get the points they need.
That's a good point, absolutely. A shake of the head there, you saw that was all due to spinning up and just lost a bit of rear wheel traction. Still Tim Reeves throwing it in quite aggressively. Pit signals telling him, and 1 lap to do. So 2.5 miles of a very, very soggy Mondello Park. And I'm amazed, Carol, to be honest, I'm amazed that we don't get more electronic problems with all this water around. You wouldn't reckon to waterproof a bike.
No, I mean, I guess some people do spray a bit with WD, etc. But yeah, you think you get more electronic problems, wouldn't you?
Still, they're running. The top 3 certainly running, and you're looking at the 3rd place on the podium man now. 4th place for Scott Lorry and James Neve. I think we both agreed there that he's settled for that. There's little to be gained by throwing caution to the wind and chasing after Ben Holland. Kyle Young doing a good job. Wonder if they'll be running in the full championship next year. Gordon Shand and young Steve Kershaw. And Rob Wilson. Rob Wilson doing a good job in his waterproofs. And I have to say, so would I be in my waterproofs. I never actually took any with me this weekend and ended up changing my shoes just about every other race. Well, a few words from you on the last lap, Carol. What do you think? Conditions not good. Obviously, this is not a true test of sidecar racing, surely. No,
it's not. Is it? You don't really get a true inspection of what the what happens on the bike, what the passenger's doing in the wet conditions is completely different to the dry. Some of the sharp left-handers, you'll see them start to get the weight out, as you can see there. But they don't move around as much. You don't see a true spectacle in the wet.
Well, I suppose it's the old cliche. It's the same for everyone. And,
absolutely, yeah.
And we're just seeing Roger Lovelock actually getting a bit of a shift on there.
He's really just woken up.
Yeah, just got a wake-up call. Lapping the tail enders now. Tim Reeves has gone past Rod Robinson on the cross-plane Yamaha. Very distinctive sound than it has. Roy Farmer holding down a third wheel on that one, and they've been regular campaigners right through the season. Another of those crews that battle week in, week out, not at the sharp end of the field, but always there or thereabouts, picking up points for their finishing, and good luck to them. There we go. Rod Robinson, Roy Farmer going through on the number 10 outfit. Race leaders then coming round with a checkered flag ahead of them. Customary one finger in the air again from Clusie. And I think Tim Reeves feels slightly relieved, and he knows he's won a race there because he had a race on his hands, certainly for the first half of it. Confirmation then. Let's take a look. Reeves and Clues, we know, took the victory. Lovelock Lawrence, we saw those top four. Phil Bell got the better of John Clark. Bygrave and Napton were their 7th. Birchall's battled up from the very back of the grid to 8th. Kyle Young, 9th. Very creditable performance for him, ahead of Craig Chaplow. Gordon Shandwell in the points as well, ahead of Steve Kershaw. Ian Drown and Phil Sloan, 13th there as well. Ben and Lee, the yellow and black number 60, you seem to be making a habit of this, so much so that you are on for a really good overall. No pressure, Ben.
No pressure. Yeah, people have been trying to heap that on us all weekend, but it's, I would just, as I said to Silverstone, we're just having fun, taking it easy, and yeah, just seeing how it goes. It seems to be working.
Yeah, did you get the feeling you were there in 3rd place and then the front two just got away, and you knew that if you rode sensibly and brought it home, you were on the podium?
Yeah, I know at one point, well, at the start when Roger got ahead of us, we couldn't see a thing. I was thinking if Ben can see as much as I can see, then, you know, he's obviously having a hard time. But no, it was really just a case of preserving the tyres. I think the rain got a little bit heavier, and we just brought it home for 3rd, which we're chuffed with.
Roger Lovelock, Rick Lawrence, another consistent ride. Fantastic conditions, no better than yesterday. And I thought, you know, you might be on for a win there, mate.
Yeah, for once, yeah. Well, yeah, it was on, definitely. No, the conditions actually started to deteriorate through the race. The rain was starting to get a bit heavier, but you know, we had the old shot in the first corner first, and I thought, yeah, we're on here. I had a funny feeling that Tim was going to be trialling pretty much, you know, but no, fair play to him. He came past us. We had a bit of a coming together on the right-hand corner down the back there, but it was, yeah, fair dues to him. We kept it in a straight line, and we sort of brought it home in 2nd place, which was good.
Rick, when you get a start like that, you can see everything, but the moment you get filled in with spray, it really makes the job hard.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we were discussing before, you know, get at the front and try and keep the invisibility good, which was, yeah, it was a bit slippery out there, a bit skittish, and I say we had a bit of a moment out the back there, lost a bit of drive, and Tim was up the inside of us, and then a bit of a coming together. We'd kept after him for a while, kept him there or thereabouts, and then towards the end kind of drove the race to bring it back rather than end up in the kitty litter somewhere off the track, because it was pretty treacherous out there towards the end.
Tim and Greg, another great win. One more race, Tim, and then you really round off your 2011 season in style. A win looks on the cards for you again, I think.
It's never over, Barry, is it? Till that checkered flag comes out, anything can happen, can't it? The two lads are going well behind us. We had a bit of a battle with Roger there. He got a flyer and we had to push quite hard to get by him. Yeah, it's good. It's just a shame the weather's so miserable, really. If it was nice and sunny, I'm sure we'd have had a fantastic weekend. Not that we haven't, but yeah, I'm over the moon. It's good to get another win, and hopefully we can round the season off with another one. But there's still 8 more laps of hard racing to do, so fingers crossed.
Tim, we've spoken throughout the season about the standard of the riders in this championship, and I think I've seen a lot of improvement further down the field.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? This year's really excelled for the young lads. You know, there's Ben Holland and Ben Bygrave and Craig Chaplow and Roger's, you know, I know Roger's not one of the younger ones, he's more of the stalwart, but he's sort of come on as well, hasn't he? And it's racing with quick blokes brings you on, and I learnt that when I was their age, learnt from Steve Webster, and for them to race against me and Ben Birch every weekend, it's just going to bring them on, and it just shows that, you know, by someone putting a good championship together and a good bit of funding, it can bring the sport on leaps and bounds, and it's what the sport needs, young faces, so hopefully it'll carry on next year.
Well, I've taken the opportunity of this brief spell of dry weather. I say dry, the rain has stopped at least. Fantastic racing here. The final race in the 2011 Eastern Airways British F1 Sidecar Championship takes place after the break. It's going to be good. Can the Birchalls bring it farther up the grid and have a respectable finish to their season here in Mondello? Join us again after the break. Here on the grid for race 2, and in actual fact the final race of the 2011 Eastern Airways British F1 Sidecar Championship. It's been a long, hard season. Some of the bikes showing real battle scars. They've been in a fight and they know it. Birchall's from the 4th row. Can they make it through to a podium to salvage something out of what has been a really, really difficult weekend? John Clark and Phil Bell had a ding-dong battle all the way through the first race on this afternoon's programme. So they're going to be locked in it again. The track surface is actually drying. It drains very, very well here at Mondello Park. So there's no standing water. That's the main thing. There's been a bit of concern that somebody might have dropped some oil. Ben Holland and Lee Watson there on the 2nd row, very much up for an overall result here. Scott Lorry, a fighting race in the first race on today's programme, came through to claim 4th. He's going to get a better start because he's always very, very quick. Now we'll move this way a little bit. That's it. Now Roger Lovelock, who led the first race this afternoon, 2 laps he led it for. There's no spray now, so Tim Reeves, if he gets a good jump here on the start, could be way in the lead. Looking for a perfectly clean sheet here today. Tim Reeves and Greg Clues, can they make it? An absolute clean sheet. The Birchalls, though, coming from row 4, have got a fair job to do. It's the final race for 2011. It's going to be a cracker. No spray. The weather's better. Let's get it on. Well, we need to bring 2011 to a fighting close here at Mondello. A few last-minute adjustments. Not sure what that was. A bit of a wiping, getting a bit of tissue out of the radiator grill. No, I'm being silly. Right, okay then. Drying patches all the way around the tarmac here. The final race of the Eastern Airways British F1 Sidecar Championship for 2011 is underway here at Mondello Park. Ben and Tom Birchall with a massive job to do from the 4th row, but already they're carving through and they're in 3rd, 2nd place as I speak. So a magnificent start for Ben and Tom Birchall from right down the pecking order, bashing fairings with Scott Lorry and James Neve. Tim Reeves dragged his heels, another fairly sluggish start. Look at this. 2 guys at the top of their game in drying conditions here. Phil Bell running wide, putting his sidecar onto the grass. Ben Bygrave almost nipping past him. Tim Reeves in 3rd. The rest of the field charging round in line astern. Somewhere out there is Roger Body, our series organiser and promoter, with Carl Schofield in the chair. He'll be towards the tail end, and that's not being disrespectful. There he is as I speak. So that's not a bad start for the old chap, is it, really?
No, not bad at all, considering he hasn't been out all season. He's doing really well.
Fantastic then. Good to get out there and compete. Just underlines how enthusiastic all these people are. Series promoter out there riding. And now they're bunched up. It's difficult to find your way around. Steve Kershaw has gone off the track. He's right behind Carl Parkinson there, number 2. At the front, though, the Birchalls and Tim Reeves, they're at daggers drawn. They have been all the way through the season, but Ben and Tom Birchall haven't contested all of the rounds. Carol, might it have been a different story if they had?
I definitely think so, yeah. Definitely would have picked up more points, wouldn't they, the way they're driving really well. Oh,
Reeves
taking a wide line there.
Yeah, absolutely. Reeves, oh, sorry. A wave of the hand from Tom Birchall saying, sorry, mate, I think we might have pushed you a little bit wide
no,
there.
that's the red flag's out now, I think, actually.
Red flag. We've got a red flag, so we have an incident somewhere round the circuit. Oh, it's upside down. That's Ian Drown and Phil Sloan passengering, holding up the outfit. So Ian Drown has got it on its roof. Let's have a look at it. Oh, sideways round. It's another one of those tippy over jobs, running out of corrective lock. Once the chair's high, there's no way back.
No.
Restart then. Without Phil Sloan and Ian Drown, the latter, of course, being the driver. Give you a report on his condition just as soon as we can, but it's Roger Lovelock this time. The Birchalls well and truly boxed in. Because it was a red flag, the grid position was exactly the same as it was to start the original race, so Birchalls from the 4th row had less of an opportunity this time to make hay. They got boxed in. Let's take a look at it, Carol.
This is Ben Bygrave going through the field. So he's like picking his line. Actually, his visibility is much, much better in this race, isn't it, compared to earlier? And that's him right on the back of Scott Lorry, trying to get on the inside there. Oh, and a little bit of contact.
Well, we saw that from the view, the camera eye view. Yeah, they were pushing. Scott Lorry determined there on the inside of Ben Holland. Oh, Tim Reeves, wow, take that. How fast do you want it coming through? Running a little bit wide though, still getting it difficult to slow it down because the damp patches out there, in some ways, correct me if I'm wrong, when it's damp and dry, that's even more difficult.
Yeah, it's still going to be quite greasy out there, and also when it's like this, it makes tyre choices different. You don't want to go for slicks, you don't want to go for full wets or use the choice of intermediates, but you're going to get some dry patches and some wet patches on this circuit. So
I've got to ask you, what attracts a lady into this cut and thrust sport?
the adrenaline fix, I think, and the teamwork as well. I mean, like on and off the track. I mean, the atmosphere in the paddock's just great. It's really good. And there's no other sport like it, really, is there?
Well, I tell my wife when I go away at the weekend, I have a very quiet weekend. So I wish you hadn't said that.
Should know different now then.
Here we go. Seriously though, the final race in the 2011 championship. We are well and truly underway here. Riding with Ben Bygrave and Paul Napton. At the front though, it's Tim Reeves, Greg Clues, Roger Lovelock, Rick Lawrence, then Ben and Tom Birchall. A sluggish start they might have had, but they're in a podium position. They're up to third. They desperately need to salvage something from an utterly dismal weekend. Yeah, they've clinched runner-up spot in the World Championship, so all credit to them. They came here on a silver medal position in the Worlds, runner-up, down to earth with a bang here at Mondello.
Yeah, and there's actually Andy Peach and Charlie Richardson trying to make their way up there, because they started with the back of the grid after that finish in the first race as well, but I think they're going to have a hard task to pick any more places up.
Craig Chaplow, Pat Farrance. Oh, out of the running goes Kyle Young. So a good result in the first race, and local man Kyle Young into the gravel. So his race is run. Ben Holland, Lee Watson on the back of Scott Lorry. So they're running further down the order, all very, very close indeed. The word up from down below is that Ian Drown has not suffered any serious injuries. He's limping about a bit. He's got a bit of a dodgy shoulder and a bad knee. So Ian Drown might have finished his season for 2011 in an undignified style, but he's effectively fit and healthy, so that is good news from the very popular man from right down there in the West Country, who has this massive journey to just about all of the UK race circuits. Rod Robinson, Roy Farmer behind Gordon Shand and Colin Smythe, so plenty of battles all the way down the order. I don't think it really, I won't say it doesn't matter where you are, Carol, but wherever you are, there's good fighting going on.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can have a a battle for any place right the way down the field. It doesn't necessarily be right up the front.
But at the front, Birchall's in third. Roger Lovelock ahead of them. Fourth for Scott Lorry. This is the battle. I'm going to say this is the battle for fourth, because it is the battle for fourth. We've got John Clark, Ben Holland, and Ben Bygrave all wanting the fourth place. I don't think they're going to be able to wind in the top three. But just look at this action. Riding now with Ben Bygrave and Paul Napton. Having a good look. The 151 sticker there. Rob Cameron, the leathers and boots man, helping most of these crews. Look at them, three abreast. Three abreast over the line. Is it going to be four? No, it's a 9-wheeler. In fact, it's a 12-wheeler, because Ben Bygrave having a bit of a shove as well. Fantastic racing, just underlining what we were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a really good battle shaping up there, isn't it? You can see those conditions are much, much better now, aren't they? There's hardly any spray at all now.
John Clark got the better of that scrap. He's got his nose in front, but we're riding with Scott Lorry, trying to find a way past John Clark's engine. Really fast, there's no doubt about it. It's been quick all season. These two guys, there's Scott Lorry. Oh, Ben Bygrave is past Ben Holland. Phil Bell wants a bit of the action as well. This is still the battle for fourth place, and it's anybody's guess. I'm going to get a £10 note out on the table. Well, actually, I haven't got one, but I wouldn't want to put money on it. Not least of all because I don't know the result. Here we go then. I only bet on safe bets, by the way.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to guess who's going to get this one. I don't think anyone's going to give any space in this, are they?
Ben Bygrave, Paul Napton, the red leathers of Paul Napton. Callum Lawson here this weekend, hopping around with his foot in plaster, watching it, sustained an ankle injury at Silverstone, but he'll be fighting fit for 2012, along with all the other crews, and I can't wait. I hope the winter goes very quickly to get stuck in to the new Eastern Airways Championship for 2012. Andy Peach, Charlie Richardson, Craig Chaplow, Pat Farrance. Look at the change of leathers from Andy Peach. Obviously they got so wet in the first outing, they've decided to come out in different leathers, but holding on to this brilliant fourth place, John Clark and Stuart Graham. Scott Laurie, James Neve, then it's Bygrave, then it's Ben Holland, Phil Bell. Craig Chaplow is right behind Andy Peach, so Andy Peach tucked in there behind Phil Bell. Having a look at the outside, all sorts of different lines. And they have to choose different lines because it's no good going line astern if you want to go past. Round the outside, Lee Watson's head almost touching the sidecar wheel, but it paid off. They're through.
They're through, yep.
Brilliant stuff. Little bit of mist on our camera because it is still damp out there. There's still stuff coming up, but mercifully no standing water. We might even get some sunshine, who knows? No. Let's not get carried away.
That might be a big arse.
It is a big arse, yeah. Third place going through, so we now know the Birchells have got past Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence. Birchells up to second place, chasing Tim Reeves. Is there any drama left yet in this final race of the 2011 season? That's the gap, first and second going through. A long, long way back before we see Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence. Then we expect to see John Clark and Stuart Graham. There they are. Then Scott Laurie, James Neve. And this battle still frantically alive further down the field for, well, I had to say, double points and double prize money.
Yep, and that's Andy. Oh. Sorry.
That was a double whammy,
yeah.
because Phil Bell and Phil Hyde out of it as well.
I'm not sure what happened. I think Andy tried to go down the inside of Phil, so whether that was his own accident or not, I'm not sure there.
Well, they're out of the running, that's for sure. Both beached it. That left it open a little bit more. Scott Laurie and James Neve have gone past John Clark and Stuart Graham. So fourth place now for Scott Laurie, fifth for John Clark, number 90, sixth for 60, Ben Holland. Can they do better? Ben Bygrave. Time and time again we've seen these young men locked in a battle, and they've come to be known as the boy band. And they're typical of the young guns that we've got in this championship. You heard Tim Reeves referring to, and here they go again. John Clark and Stuart Graham going to be swarmed all over, I think, by...
Yeah, and then Ben's going to go down the inside. Is he going to make that stick?
Brace of young men, there he goes. Is he going to make it stick? He's going round the long way round. Anyway, we'll do it, seems.
It's worth a try.
Right, Scott Laurie, James Neve then. Fourth place, we know they're in. Ahead of them, Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence. What a season they've had. Second in the championship, and this position doing them no harm at all. Race leader, Tim Reeves, Greg Clues. A seamless display of sidecar racing. Ben and Tom Birchall in the Montgomery liveried Yamaha, chasing them down with 2.5 miles of this rapidly drying Mondello Park circuit to come. And it's it now. We've got a battle for the final podium place. Is Roger Lovelock going to be able to hold off the obviously charging Scott Laurie? He's right on him. 1 lap to go then. Scott Laurie wants it. Is he going to get it? Well, I don't know. It's close. Now we're going to see all the track craft displayed by Roger Lovelock, keeping this man behind him. But when Scott Laurie's on a mission, there's nobody more determined,
No,
Carol.
and there he is. He's gone past.
There you go. See, I give you all the best jobs, don't I? There you go. Up to third then, Scott Laurie and James Neve. No disgrace for Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence. I can only think that they've got some sort of problem, because normally they keep it going right to the end. It's not like them to surrender places. Bygrave and Holland. Ben Bygrave holding that advantage that he got. Craig Chaplow and Pat Farrance now have got John Clark and Stuart Graham in their sights, the number 90 outfit. So this, the race leader. Maximum points, maximum prize money, the championship already wrapped up. What has to be said has been a very, very successful season for Tim Reeves and Gregory Clues. Similarly for the Birchalls, albeit not in the British Championship, but runners-up in the world, and they did themselves a power of good today with a fighting second place in race 2. But as for the rest of the weekend, I'm quite sure they're going to go home and forget it. Checkered flag is out then. That's it. Tim Reeves and Greg Clues completing their season. One more race on the programme for them, and that's over here in Ireland, and that'll be the Sunflower. Confirmation then, Reeves and Clues, Birchall, Laurie, we saw that happen. So Laurie is on the podium. You'll be pleased about that. Bygrave got the better of Holland. John Clark nearly pipped by Chaplow. Andy Peach recovered from the gravel to finish ahead of Steve Kershaw. Phil Bell didn't recover quite as well, but he was 12th. And look at that, 14th place for Roger Body and Carl Schofield. Only a minute adrift. That's not bad. Tim Reeves, Greg Clues, this is a win, win, win. I mean, unbeaten all weekend. You've won the championship. You won that race again. And here you are, overall winners of Mondello. Fantastic weekend.
Yeah, I don't know what to say really. It couldn't have gone any better, could it? We've had an absolutely fantastic end of the season. And the best race of the day was the last one. And real shame it got stopped. I hope that Ian Drown's all right. But I think if it hadn't got stopped, it would have been a four-way proper humdinger. But yeah, and we got away well in the second start. And couldn't have gone better, could it? I've had a fantastic year. Greg's done a fantastic job, and yeah, I don't know what to say really. I'm a bit, over the moon.
Greg, that first start, as Tim said, absolutely fantastic. There were 4 outfits in one line across the track.
Yeah, and the gap is very, very close. Now we have a good race. You know what? I think we have a great race season, and I want to say thank you to Tim, all the family, the sponsor, for the help they do all the year. Thank you very much, and thank you for the organization, because it's a beautiful championship.
It's made great TV, Tim. You know, with the feedback we're getting, the race, the TV coverage, everything, it's just building from strength to strength.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? You know, so everyone knows that sidecar racing is an exciting sport. It needs to be put out to everyone so they can see it. And I think this year it's worked a treat. We've had some real good coverage, some real good races, and there's loads of young lads in it now. And I know we keep saying it's good for the sport, but it is. It's just fantastic that there's these young 20-year-olds that are trying to nip at our heels. And as far as I'm concerned, it's great. I'd like to have, I don't want to win races easy. I'd like to have good battles. And this year it's been like it. Every race has been hard work, and today was the same. And it's just good. And yeah, hopefully next year the championship will grow in strength even more.
We'll go home, winter well, and see you 2012.
Thanks very much. A big thank you to everyone. Hayth and Gregory's father, my father, Roger Body for the championship, H&S Contractors, Express Tyres, Seal Clean Oils. There's so many people that they all know who they are, and yeah, I'm over the moon. Good job.
Well, he did a good job. Look at that, 5:25. 215 points the margin from Roger Lovelock and Rick Lawrence. Scott Laurie claimed third. He was pursued all the way though by Ben and Tom Birchall. Might have been a different story if they'd done all the rounds. Everybody scored some points. Good to see the names down there. Kyle Young, local lad here from Ireland. He did himself some good as well. 24 points there in 20th place. It's been a very well supported championship this year, and nobody goes home empty-handed. Well, that's it from Mondello, and that's it in actual fact for 2011 from the Eastern Airways British F1 Sidecar Championship. We've had an absolute ball throughout the season, and indeed here in Mondello, despite the rain. It's been a great year. We've identified a pair of worthy champions in the shape of Tim Reeves and Greg Clues. We've also seen some fantastic new talent coming through, which really bodes well for 2012. We're already looking forward to next year and planning for it. I hope you winter well. Thanks for supporting us this year, but for now, goodbye.